Hey, welcome to the Cam and Otis Show. On this episode, we are joined by James Corbett. James Corbett is the co-founder of Project Refit and the co-founder of Impact Intel. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, no problem, man. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'd like to just dive in first. Could you talk a little bit about what Project Refit is and what the mission is behind it?
Yeah, so our mission is really simple. We try to keep things, I guess, the KISS method, keep it simple, stupid. So it's combat isolation. That's our mission, like through and through. That guides everything that we're doing. We're building up how we're doing that. We're building up, an online presence for peer-to-peer support through the Radio Check Buddy Check-in programs. And we also have an in-person program called the Mobile Base Program. And the Mobile Base Program is really for like VFWs or American Legions on Wheels. And essentially what we're doing with that, we're actually building our first one now. We're really aiming to launch out, just something to be in the community, boots on ground, have these guys show up, talk to each other, support one another out at different events, venues, hospitals even. You can even go to police departments, fire departments, things like that, and really get the community together and give them their places to be to see and talk to like-minded individuals.
How did you find that aspect of the solution? Because when you said combat isolation, I think that's a great problem to attack in terms of trying to combat veteran suicide rates and all of that kind of things. How did you find isolation as the target for Project Refit?
Man, no one's asked me that, by the way. Not one human being has ever asked me that question. I'm not even joking. Most of the people say, how'd you come up with the idea, blah, blah, this, that, and the other. Now you're asking me to get into my head to tell you what's going on in my brain. So with isolation, I know what isolation feels like, me personally, right? I know how it feels to not have a voice. I know how it feels to feel like you're not being heard. I know how it feels to anything that goes along the lines of isolation and feeling like you're away from people or you're not in a crowd or you're not a part of a community. I know what all that feels like. All of that shit. And that is quite literally why when I hear and when I look at data that talks about people and humans and the way and the data that I saw in particular that kind of like enlightened me through all this shit was actually I was looking at, conflict data when I was at Columbia, and it literally brought out of my everything that I thought of. There's two quotes. One quote I came up with that I love. You cannot achieve peace without understanding. And I think through that understanding of humans that I have, I think that when you suppress someone's voice for so long and tell them they can't do things or tell them that they aren't worthy of certain dreams or aspirations or whatever it may be, or even worthy of being a protector anymore, being someone that can be a part of a community, someone who, oh, you're broken, you're this, you're that, you're just literally labeling these humans that way. You end up isolating them in their own brains and by themselves. And there's nothing deeper and more dangerous than that. And I think that's when you end up creating what they call, and I'm going back to his second quote, the weak man. And I think that's something that we're only stronger in numbers and we're stronger with each other. And that's something why I'm looking to bring people back together in person.
Yeah, I love that. One of the things that I think whenever I have conversations around a lot of the different big problems nowadays in the country, around suicide, drug abuse, and different things, a lot of that to me tends to go back to, like you're saying, isolation. I usually call it a loneliness epidemic is one of my favorite phrases for it, because when you have those connections around people, when you have people supporting you, you have that sense of purpose. You don't wind up making those kind of decisions. So I love that y'all are taking that approach. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, man. I said not always. And yeah, man, I agree with you. I think that I genuinely believe when I looked at the way our world is going, I actually came up with the hybrid theory itself back in 2015, trying to be ahead of the curve in terms of where the world was going. And, of course, I'm little old me. I'm not a good fucking salesman. I never have been. I just have a lot of great ideas. I'm sometimes a little bit too technical when I speak and shit like that. Like I'm not a good salesman, right? So I would go and I'd try to tell people about the ideas that I had and stuff. And I had to tone it back, and I had to be like, all right, I'm like overbearing. I'm like words and data and people don't give a shit about that stuff, man. They just want to like they want to know, like, dude, what is it? What's your idea? And I had to tell the story differently. I had to learn how to adjust and adapt and become better at communicating. So, that's something that I had to go through my own journey with is becoming a better communicator that way. So, and by the way, that's me saying, like, it wasn't anybody else's fault as to why I didn't build this faster or whatever. It was genuinely all on me. I mean, I had to get better. I had to fight off whatever negativity was coming my way and stay focused and stay clear. And that's just, the challenges of starting, I guess, getting to the point of even this whole podcast. That's the point of leadership, to learn how to work through all that bullshit. No matter what anybody says to you, you got a vision and a dream. Literally the easiest thing to do is continue forward. That's it.
How did you, because I've had that problem myself as an entrepreneur in startups of, basically just talking too much. How did you learn to dial that back? Because I think that's a great lesson for a lot of entrepreneurs, because when you start a business, it's your passion and, your whole world revolves around it. It's like the yellow truck theory. You never see a yellow truck until you're looking for one. If you're starting a business, everything you see connects back to that business. It's all you want to talk about. And so the oversharing becomes, a burden, just like you're saying. So how did you get yourself out of that and kind of dial down that communication, or dial in the communication rather?
Here's something that I say to myself. I look at myself in the mirror, and I don't know if I'm allowed to curse. Am I allowed to curse?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So I look at myself in the mirror. This is how I did it. And I stared at myself in the face and I said, shut the fuck up. That's it. I swear to God, that's what I did. I did that for myself all the time. I literally just shut the fuck up. And I would remember that. And I remember and when I'm listening to people, it's actually why I think one of my superpowers now is listening. I've always had the ability to listen to people actually very well. I've always had that superpower, but and I call it that because it's uncomfortable how closely I listen to you. Everything, I look at your face, I look at your eyes, I look at your, everything, your body, everything. I'm listening to you. But when it's about my business, I get super excited. And sometimes it still happens where I'll say something. I'm like, damn it. I'm like, sorry, man, keep going. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I literally will say, and they're like, no, go ahead. I'm like, no. You need to go ahead. I need to shut the fuck up. Go ahead. And then they're like, all right. And I remind myself of that, right? So that's allowed me to become, honestly, reminding myself of that and telling myself to shut the fuck up reminded me to become more patient, right? To listen, just shut up and listen to the person. And it allows you to pick up on many things. I mean, people who are manipulative, people who are good, people who are who have not necessarily the manipulative, but have nefarious, acts against you or good things for you, right? It's the balance is what I'm talking about there. So if you just listen, you can hear everything.
How do you think that patience has played into your leadership and Project Refit, and even into the problem-solving aspect? Because I could see how that kind of insight could also play into what you're talking about as far as combating the isolation.
I'll give you a good example, man. I was on a meeting last night. I had a meeting at 11 p.m., lasted until about 12:30 a.m., and I was having a meeting with a couple of actually police officers. And, we were talking about Impact, my for-profit product. And, they work weird hours. So, that's why I'm up. My schedule is everywhere. So, but basically I had to sit back and listen to some feedback from them to me about the product. And by doing that, by having the patience in the moment, by just listening, I got to know who they are. Those two, they're good dudes. They're very funny. And I also got great feedback on one of our features of our product. It's all about collaboration between departments and also internally. Well, they gave me a great piece of feedback and a great reminder, honestly, of the market that we're dealing with is one that just wants to be direct. They want to be clear. They don't want to have to think too much, just because their decision making has to be saved for those split second major life and death decisions that they have to make. You know what I mean? So, if we can help them think more, and that's better. right? That means we're doing a good job. And there was some feedback that they gave me last night about my product that it is a very small thing, by the way, but it's monumental for the ease of use of the product itself. So it just sit back and listen, man.
If I've got the dates right on this, Project Refit's been going for about 5 years now. So y'all got in, I'm guessing, doing a lot of more in-person stuff before the pandemic. And then did you shift to the hybrid model as the pandemic kind of hit, or were you ahead of the curve on that?
We were always ahead of the curve. And we also we built our app first. So we were aiming for, because we have a mobile app that we built. And we were aiming to launch the mobile base after. The app is going to require a lot of funding, and we don't have that obviously right now. We have enough funding for mobile base, and that's what we're going to hyper focus on. And we do have conversations coming up with some developers for the app to get fixed up and simplified, actually. So we were always aiming for this hybrid approach. Actually, if you go to my website, and by I mean Project Refit's website, you'll see a white paper that was written. And I wrote this white paper to describe actually even the hybrid theory itself, very much the one that we're living in today. So when you read it now, if you read it a few years ago, you'd be like, oh, this makes any sense. You know, and now you read it and people are like, oh, this totally makes sense. And it's like, okay, here we are. Welcome to the future that was coming no matter you wanted it or not. And we're here, and people are recognizing exactly what I actually wrote about. And that's the going back to leadership. There's something about giving your people freedom, giving people, and by people, I mean like workers or whoever you're leading, freedom to be who they are. And you're supposed to take care of them, right? And then somebody told me, oh, that's called servant leadership. And I was like, oh, I thought that's what leadership was just supposed to be. I didn't know there was a name for it.
We're the exact same on the show. We say it all the time. If you're not a servant leader, you're not a leader. That's all there is. There's only one type of leader.
Oh, well, then we get it. So I don't understand how anyone can think otherwise. Like, oh, I have to just drill into them and tell them what. No, man, ask people what they want to do, right? And like, it's a longer, also going back to your answer your question of like patience. And like how it affects my leadership. You know what it does? It puts a lot of weight on my shoulders. I think right now, and it stresses me the fuck out right now, to be honest with you, which is okay. I'm built for this shit, so I'm fine. But like, I recognize that I have to lift a lot, and what happened through that patience is I said that to a few people. I had one person come back to me. Her name's Deanne. Deanne was like, hey, I know what I want to do for you guys now. And I was like, what do you want to do? And it took her like a year and a half, but that's okay. I'm not like, that's totally fine, literally. And she's like, I want to write grants for you guys. I was like, holy shit, that's fucking amazing. That's very helpful. Let's go. So now that's what she's already pumped out, like 4 or 5 grants for us. Whether we win them or not, I don't give a shit. The fact that she's helping and doing that is amazing, right? Like literally amazing. So I didn't tell her what to do. She told me what she wanted to do to help us out.
Have you had any problems? Because I think the other end of when you allow your team the freedom that they need to be successful, there's also that other end where, call it bad actors, freeloaders, whatever you want to call it, that other end of the spectrum. Have you had any issues with that inside of the team? And if not, how have you combated that from the leadership side? Or I guess either way, how'd you combat it from the leadership side?
Yeah, so we have. And you know what? It gets to a point where you just got to revamp shit. That's it.
What do you mean by that?
Got to take them out. Simple as that.
Yeah.
It's like, look, you don't want to be a part of it. That's fine. No hard feelings. This is how I handle it. No hard feelings. I can tell you're busy. You have a life of your own, and that's okay. We need people that can dedicate time. You can't dedicate time right now. And honestly, that's fine. And we just need to move forward, and that's it.
Yeah, I think that's one of those things when people look at, letting someone go, firing, whatever you want to call it, whatever phrase you want to use for it. When you look at it in that kind of a context, I think too many leaders inside a business look at that as like, they have to be working for us. This is like the best possible thing. This is the best possible thing for them, for us, and all these type of things. But the reality is, if they don't fit, if they don't fit, then there's no point. It's not good for your team. It's not good for them if it's not a good fit.
Dude, that's something like what you listen to the words that you just said about what people, because I've heard bosses say that shit, like, oh, they're never gonna have a job as good as this one, or we are the like, get over yourself, man. Like, no, you're not. Like, you're not better than anybody. Like, I hate that stuff. I hate it. I hate it when people put other people down and based on like money and worth of through money and all. I can't stand that stuff, man. I think that is I think that's one of the sicknesses that comes with the society that we live in right now, a personal belief of mine. Nobody's better than anybody, right? And I know that some people are sick and they need help and stuff, but you're not better than them. So I don't want to be close to, and I've actually distanced myself from people who, the one phrase I look out for actually all the time, and I say it openly, is if you call someone else a peasant, like, oh, they're just peasants. I don't know if you've ever heard anybody say that before. Yeah. I do not like those people. I do not want to be around you. How dare you speak about another human being like that? That's what I think, right? Yeah. Because why are you better than that person? Oh, because you have a couple $100,000 or a couple $1 million more than those people, and you think that you're better than them? Get out of here, bro. It doesn't mean anything. Your life could be so shallow and empty when you go home, and that person could be so fulfilled and happy. Like they're so much better off than you. So I think that phrase of calling other people peasants, it literally heats me. It heats me. How dare you is what I like to say, right? Like that's just not okay. Who do you think you are? So I think that's something that, you know, we do that to try to make ourselves feel better. I think insecure people do that to make themselves feel better. My favorite people are like people like, you know, like your father, like Otis. When I first met him, you didn't know this dude was a fucking gangster, right? Like straight up, like badass dude. And like, he's just a regular guy. You just walk up, hey, what's going on? Nice to meet you. I'm Otis. It's like, what's up, Otis? Thank you for coming by the Project Refit house to meet some veterans and stuff like that and come talk to Michael Parker. He's like, yeah, no problem, man. And like, just said hello, got to know the mission a little bit. And then he left. And then Parker's like, that guy was a Green Beret. And I was like, oh, really? He's like, yeah, like an old school Green Beret. I was like, oh shit, that's pretty cool. Like, he doesn't just go, how you doing? I'm Otis. I'm a Green Beret. I'm fucking better than you. I've done all these things. It's like, he doesn't do that kind of shit, man. Like, it's a humble approach. He doesn't think he's better than you, and you don't feel like he thinks he's better than you. He's just a guy who has his own life, who has his own kids, and he just loves his family, and that's all he is. He's just an American man. You know what I mean? That's it. Like, I love those kind of people.
I got to tell a quick story on that. I remember when my brother was commissioning out of into the Army, Texas A&M. My dad was in uniform, and he retired right when I got into high school, so I didn't see him in uniform as much as my older siblings. And I kind of looked at him and all the stuff he had on, and I can't even name all the different things. I kind of looked down the line at the different people there, and I was like, he looks really different. And then when my brother's friends, it's like, holy shit, he's a sapper, he's a this, he's a that. And then all these things I didn't even know. And it's because he just carries it so humble. And actually, that sets me up for something. We've talked a few times on the podcast about this. I would love to get your input on it.
Sure.
I think that, you know, I'm my father's son in that sense. You know, he raised me to be humble. And I think when you're humble, it's a great thing. But in the entrepreneur world, it opens you up to imposter syndrome a lot. And so I kind of it's a little bit of a double-edged sword as I've been looking at it. And this is something I've been exploring for a while. And so I want to kind of throw that over to you. How do you balance being humble? You know, I'm not better than anybody else, but then at the same time, you know, you're going to do amazing things, and you want to have that kind of a confidence to go to go lead your business and not feel like an imposter while you're up there.
I actually don't think they're mutually exclusive. I don't think they're mutually exclusive at all. I think that imposter syndrome is just something that shows you're not like a narcissist and a psychopath. That's all I think. I think that if you think you are, if you genuinely believe, if I genuinely believe in my heart of hearts, I'm going to change America. Like, I say that kind of like, let's go change America, boys. You know what I mean? I say that shit to people that surround me. But like, there was a time, I can tell you, it happened recently, actually. Everything is beginning to unfold for me. Everything's beginning to happen, right? Everything I planned for, all of it, dude. And like, I was sitting there and I'm sitting with this woman, and she's a good woman, and I'm talking to her or whatever. And then just this overwhelming feeling of dread just comes over my body, right? I'm just like, holy shit. I'm actually remembering, I'm getting chills right now. I was like, holy shit. Am I capable of doing all this? Right? Like, am I capable? Am I able? Am I worthy of it? Whatever, everything that came along. And then immediately I was like, oh, imposter syndrome, son of a bitch. I literally called it out loud within like, it was the weirdest 5 minutes of my life, honestly. I was like, fucking imposter syndrome. And then she's like, yeah, you're going through something right now. And I was like, yeah, I'm going through something heavy right now, but I'm going to be okay, I think. And she's like, I just want to let you know, you are capable. I just want to let you know. And I was like, damn, thank you. And like, like, that's all I just need. Like, it was really cool for her to say that to me. And I just kind of was like, I breathed. I was like, all right, cool. You know? And like, cause I don't know if you've ever got hit with imposter syndrome that deeply before, but like, dude, I literally felt like, oh, I'm not capable. But then I was like, you know what? I'm really happy I got that. I'm really happy I got that feeling. I get that feeling still sometimes. I'm like, fuck, what am I? I'm so much. And I'm like, stop that. That's literally what I go. It's almost like the thing I said in the beginning, to learn how to stop speaking so much. Unless I'm in a scenario like this, I'm allowed. But like,
podcasts don't count.
yeah, podcast doesn't count. I'm supposed to do this. You're asking me questions. I tell myself. But genuinely, like in the mirror, like, shut the fuck up. Right? It's the same kind of thing, but instead it's like, come on, man, you're fine. That's what I said. Like, you're fine. Take it easy. Enjoy life. You're having fun. Like, this is amazing. The things you're able to do, the things you're building. I'm literally building this base with my own bare hands right now. And like, and that's going to be a part of the story, right? Like we did this thing with we grinded it out to raise the money. We have this brand new concept, and now we're getting, emails from, major city police departments to maybe bring them a base. We're getting contacted by military bases to come through. We're getting I mean, dude, tons of shit is happening right now for Project Refit, and also even Impact. And like, I'm talking like investors and product ready, and like the AI implementation, and like all this other shit that we're doing that's fucking amazing. And I'm sitting over here in the middle, and I just have to be like, you need to do this one. 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 We need to have this meeting. And it's like, oh, I'm the quarterback. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, all right, this is cool. Or, cause I've always done like individual sports. So I've always been like wrestling and jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai and even a little bit of boxing, but Muay Thai is better because you get the kick and punch. But, I like, that's always been like, it's me against myself kind of thing. And, but now it's like, no, man, this is baseball. Everybody's got their position, but like, you're a team, and like, you got to have that distribution. So it's even better. It's a quarterback, so I'm like learning all these different things. Anyway, sorry. I could go on and on and on about all the things that I'm learning. I mean, even about the world I'm learning too, which has also been crazy. I've been kind of sheltered my whole life. And like, I'm having like these awakenings to how evil and shitty the world is, as well as it is beautiful. And like, I'm just like, damn, this is amazing. Like, it's a crazy, awesome journey and ride, man. So
yeah, what you just made me think. I've got a line I've started saying in the past year or so. I probably stole it from somebody or paraphrased it or something. But everywhere you are is beautiful if you take long enough to look. And what you just said right there also has me thinking, it's the duality of the world. Everything is also pretty evil if you take the time to look.
That's right, man. That's right. I was sitting down with a police officer. This also gives you insight into how jaded and how stressful the job this is, by the way. We were talking about it because I also studied a little bit of criminology when I was in college too, my undergrad. And, that's basically the psychology of how crime and why criminals do what they do, blah, blah, blah. So, and the psychology of crime in general. But anyway, so I'm talking to this police officer, and we're sitting there, and he's like, and I said to him, I was like, what's crazy about life right now that I'm beginning to learn is we're in here in a bar. We're in like a bar restaurant. And there's like 100 people probably in there, maybe more. And I was like, out of these 100 people, I know for a fact that right now it's 1 out of every 5 that have done something like criminal wise that is pretty fucking nasty. Right. So think about that. So
1 in 5 while you're in a crowded restaurant. Oh my gosh.
Right, dude. and then he literally goes like this. He leans in. He's like, I know. And I was like, whoa, whoa, Mr. Officer. I hear you, buddy.
Oh
Like
wow.
it's like this. I know what I just did for you is a realization. I can see it in your face. You're like, holy shit. Like that's what they think about. Like cops live. Actually, police officers are very different with their trauma. They live in their
Mhm.
trauma every fucking day. One guy was actually talking about it, and he was enlightening me on it. And he gave me. And by the way, this is those moments where you just shut the fuck up and
Yeah.
listen. Right. So he literally sat back. He's like, I want you to think about this, man. I drive down the street and he wasn't saying it to me, by the way. I was listening to two guys speaking to each other. So I'm on this outside, just to give you preference. So he's saying it to another. He's like, listen to me, man. You're driving down the street and you're on the road where you were in like 15 fights in the past like 5 years. You got shot at a block over there. You just saw a person who was, dead inside of a building over there. There was a house over there. And then you hear about like burned bodies that are burned into grounds and into the ground and stuff like that in another house, and a new family moves in a month later. Like it's like crazy stuff that they're seeing and that they're living in their own town, and they're the ones seeing it all the time. Think about that stress for just a second. And that's why Project Refit is literally, I'm not like giving a plug, right? I'm like dead serious. Like that's why Project Refit's doing the connection piece in communities again, where, hey, let's bring veterans into the mix to talk to these guys. Let's bring some fucking cops in the mix to talk to some of the veterans. Like, let's get them together, and let's get the EMTs in there and firefighters in there too, because they see crazy shit too. And let's let these people, like-minded folks who understand, real life, get them to talk to each other and build community around each other, because when they're okay, the rest of society ends up being okay.
Mm-hmm. That's such an interesting thing, because, when you think about the trauma, I guess I had always kind of viewed it through the lens, and this might even be a misperception on the military side of it, but that it was it's kind of, I don't know, almost like an on and off type thing, to where it's like you're over there doing the job and then you come back and that's where things really set in. It's kind of the story you tend to see. And then the picture you're painting there, the police officers, that's completely eye-opening, of just living in that all the time.
All the time. Check this out. So I'm going to give you a good balancing act. This is something else that I learned through listening. So a police officer has a big challenge, a major challenge that a veteran doesn't have to, combat veterans don't have to deal with. Combat veterans don't have to worry ever about taking the life of another American.
Oh, shit. Wow.
Can we think about that? How deep that is for a second? Police officers have to worry about that. They don't want to do that. I know they don't. I know it. They don't want to have to draw their gun, man. I know police officers who literally have said to me before, retired guys, like, I am so happy that I never had to draw my weapon in my like 25, 30 years of service. And I'm like, yeah, but why? And they're like, just I'm grateful for it. And then later I learned that mindset. A police officer a veteran never has to worry about taking the life of an American. Simple as that. That's, if you don't understand that, me saying that, and I know you do, Cam, I'm talking to your audience now. If you don't understand that, I want you to think about it a little bit more. Like, genuinely, think about that stress of having to take a fellow citizen's life. That is not something that, if you are of sound mind, that is not something that you want to do. It's crazy. So that's like just an added stressor to understand the mentality of a police officer. You know what I mean? And even for like the veterans are overseas. They don't have, they leave, but they also, man, there's something about these guys who see war, they always want to go back. Right? They always want to go back. It's almost all of them say it. They're like, dude, like, would I do it again? Absolutely. Do I miss it? Absolutely. Do I want to go back? Yeah, I do. In some ways, I really want to get back there. Not all of them. I shouldn't say all. All is a very strong word, but many of them, I'll say, if not most, I'll say at least some want to go back. But I feel like it's most that I've talked to, and I think even if you have conversations like that, because the thing that comes down to it is you're around a bunch of people that you absolutely 100% with your full on mind can trust. You're on the same side. There is no doubt that if your dad and me were in a fucking like fight together, your dad would back me the fuck up 100,000% of the time. And I think you know that you would do the same thing, probably even for your father, and your father would do the same for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, no question. So now when you come back from that, you don't know if they are. You don't know who around you is going to be your friend or your foe.
Mm-hmm.
And then you lose that. And then in law enforcement, the thing that sucks there is that sometimes even they, when I listen to them tell me shit, even sometimes with them, you don't know what guy's going to get your back or what guy's going to end up stabbing you in the back to take your position or something like that. So there's politics that is thrown on top of the stressor for the police officer too.
Oh, shit. Yeah. That's a whole nother layer for them. I'm curious on that. How, and, the steps back into, combating the isolation and all that, how can we, or how can Project Refit, recreate some aspect of that? Because it's what you're talking about in a pure sense, and not in the sense of going to a war zone, but in the pure sense of what you're talking about there, that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. And so then the question becomes, how can you build that into, these communities that you're building? What does that look like from your leadership perspective?
So we've always, we keep it real here at Refit. Mm-hmm. We keep it real. If we think something's going wrong, we tell it right to them, right to their face, and we are being honest with them. We actually have seen major success with that because a lot of guys just want to hear, "Hey, man, you're fucking up," right? Mm-hmm. And like, "Hey, you should probably slow down your drinking. Hey, you should probably not smoke as much weed. Hey, you should be maybe trying to get like get yourself more solid on solid ground or whatever." You know what I mean? Like, whatever the conversation may be, we try to bring it right to them and be honest right away. And that's all they're looking for in some ways, is like that honesty, to that no holds bar honesty. And we bring that here with this. And I think that you'll never, to answer your question, we'll never be able to recreate and I think that we would be stupid to try to recreate the camaraderie and the absolute trust that a war and a fight can bring. Because nothing can replicate that. Because at the end of the day, that is the most human experience that anyone throughout history can experience. So there's nothing like that in that trust, because when you talk about these guys became family, they became literally family. They trusted each other more than their own family. So I never want to try to replicate that, but I will, we'll host retreats and we'll host reunions and we'll drive to, like, we drove to Louisiana to rebuild a roof for somebody. We went out to Colorado last year to support someone out in Colorado just with a retreat, and we did a Spartan race together, and we helped them lose a ton of weight, and like brought the whole family out and brought a bunch of veterans out. That's actually when your dad came out to say hello too and like show his support. It was great, man. We drove like 18,000 miles last year all around the country doing shit. So, I mean, like that's what it's about. And, we just need an organization that's so fucking crazy and so balls to the wall that we do that kind of shit, because then we can tell people like, yo, do this in your own community, get a base in your community, and you don't have to drive 18,000 miles. Take this base down the street, go talk to somebody, create a partnership with a hospital in your local area, and create what we're calling the Ronald McDonald House on wheels, right? Where if there's a guy who's an inpatient, seriously, an inpatient care, meaning long-term care, bring a base to that hospital, get the family out, bring out a mental health professional, why not? Give them food, let them hang out, play some video games, chill out on the base in a nice, comfortable atmosphere. And if they need to talk to somebody, there's a person right there.
Wow.
Do it in your community. That's it.
I love that. It's really inspiring. And I love that you see it from the big picture and then how that can fall into, the smaller communities. That's, great for the business. I think that's one of those blind spots that a lot of people fall into. One thing I'm really curious about is, and this is coming from the token civilian on this podcast normally, do you have any trouble? do you have any, I don't know, I think this is like the first, like only, there's no vets on the podcast, probably one of the first times. But do you have any trouble being that, like I called it the token civilian? And because there's the desire to relate with the people you're around, but then there's also that, and this is coming from, me personally, the desire to relate with the other people, but then there's also that, like clear barrier of like, I do not know what that is like, and I will never know what they've been through with all of these different things. Do you have trouble being on the outside on that, or what has that been like?
I never have trouble with that shit. I don't
Hmm.
care. I know my decision. I know what I did. I know what I'm doing. And I know what I'm doing is something that's it's needed more than ever in our communities. And I know that what I'm doing cannot be accomplished without a team. And I know that the people that are around me have the experiences that they have to make it better. So and you have your experiences that make you better. I have my experiences that make me better. That they'll never understand or go through. If I didn't go to school, if I didn't decide just to go to school, I never would have had this understanding that I do, to have the vision that I do. I also rely heavily on my empathy, because we may not have experienced similar things to them, but I know when they say certain feelings, I know what it feels like. And that is something that I think is a mistake that people constantly do. Like, oh, I don't know what it's like to get shot at. Well, do you know what it's like to almost get hit by a fucking car? Why don't you take just a semblance of that and then have it be put inside of you, and then be like, do you remember that feeling, that adrenaline that you got, that like, whoa, like, fuck, like that quick little thing that happened? Take that just in your head for a second and try to expand that over time. Just in that moment when you're listening to that person, it takes a lot of energy to do that. And then think about the fear, and then the fear that you would have to overcome to then be in that situation. And then you're like, oh shit, there I am. I can kind of feel what they felt, and I can tell how that would make you feel like shit. And I can also tell how that could keep you up at night. Right. Like I can see that. That makes sense to me. Right. And something that happened. Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, this reminds me a lot of, and I can't say who I heard this from, but it's like the idea that you can't imagine something is like this like lazy cop out in those type of things. It's not that you know, because like I said, even though I don't know what it feels like, it's lazy, exactly, because you can extend, you know, if you take the time to, you know, be empathetic and literally imagine what that could be like. You're not going to know what it was literally like to be there, but the idea that you can't imagine it is just you having a cop out to not think about those dark things, in my opinion, at least.
Correct on so many levels. And then and my favorite is when people try to, when I actually say to people, like, actually, you could have a conversation with any veteran and anybody about these things if you actually wanted to. And I called them on it, and then like, oh no, you'll never understand. You'll never fully understand. They try to like shame you right back that you're able to do that and able to imagine it. It's like, well, you know, I actually have taken the time to get into their shoes. So, and you know, it only takes one conversation for you to get there. And that's why I'm actually bringing with me out to Colorado this year. You should come, man. If you're in Colorado, right?
I'm down in Arizona, but I make trips up there, so I'll coordinate some dates.
All right, it's June. We're going to be there from June 21st to the 26th. But I have a civilian that's actually coming with us too, out on this retreat, and I recognize the purpose of that is to get that person to fully understand. I'm going to have him sit in on these fireside chats and like listen to guys talking, getting to know each other. I don't care if it's 10 dudes that come with us. I don't give a shit. We're going out there. We're going to fucking do it. We're going to hang out. And this civilian is going to become even more like, because like because this kid also, he's young. He's like 24 or whatever. He really wants to understand like people more. He wants to understand the world more. He flat out said that to me before. And I was like, well, I'll tell you what, man, you want to understand the world, you got to hang out with some dudes who've seen shit, because they're the ones that genuinely know the world. And he was like, all right, cool. He's like, can I help out then? And I was like, anytime. And then when he found out about the trip, he's like, and I asked, I was like, hey, I need people to help me drive that truck and that trailer out to Colorado. Do you want to help out? He's like, absolutely, I'm down. I was like, fuck yeah. So I've got a Marine, I've got Army vet, I've got a civilian, and me, a civilian, driving that thing out there. Dan can't do the trip again. Dan's like, there's no way I'm doing it again, man. He's like, I can't fucking drive that shit. He's like, I'll buy a plane ticket and I'll get out there. I was like, all right. And because he says to me that he still like suffers from like the anxiety of like, he can't even drive in the city still, actually. It so fucking freaks him out. He needs somebody to drive in the city. Yeah, it's pretty tough actually.
Oh my
And I'll
gosh.
tell you what, full transparency. I haven't talked to him about it before. I was like, sometimes I feel like it's because he shared two things. He's very open. Like I said, we're very clear here at Project Refit.
Mhm.
He's like, I have a lazy side to me, man. He's like, I am not going to do things all the time because I'm fucking lazy at heart. And he's like, but there's sometimes where it's genuinely just like my anxiety and shit. I thought in my head for a second, like, oh, hey, you just want to fly out because you don't want to fucking drive with us and you think it's going to be too much work. And then I was like, oh, wait, that's fucked up for me to think. I had to take a step back and think
Mhm.
about it. And actually, something happened to me recently. I haven't taken a trip for myself in a long time. And I took a trip for myself to go play golf last week at Kings Mill Resort in Virginia. And I literally just played golf and I didn't look at anything else. And the week up to it was freaking out. I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. I want to stay here. I want to focus on my shit. So I'm going to do my work. Everything's going to collapse around me. Anxiety, right? And then I was like, oh, that's what Dan feels. That's what Dan feels right there. But all the time, approaching that period, he's going to be flipping the fuck out and it's going to cause physical pain. Got it. So then in my head again, I was like, reset. My man needs a flight. He's got that flight. He did. He got it already and everything like that. But it was a good reminder for myself to take a step back and be like,
Mhm.
he's my boy. He's one of my best friends. I know he's not fucking around. You know what I mean? It was just me being a dick actually a little bit, to be blunt,
Mhm.
right? Like,
Yeah.
and like, and it's just, like, oh, well, fucking, he can't, whatever. And it's like, nah, dude, shut up. It's all good. You figured it out. You have 4 people, including myself. So three other people going to be driving with you. Get that thing out there. We'll do the shift
Mhm.
driving. We stop for the night. We stay at a hotel and we wake up and fucking finish that drive out together. It's going to be a good time. So,
That's how
that was just,
dangerous. That's how
yeah,
dangerous those assumptions can be, though, is that, it
very,
happens with somebody in your team that you're so close with. And because you didn't have that conversation, because you weren't communicating with them, you make that assumption and you just let that assumption run and run. My favorite example is I had a co-founder of a company I was working with, and he like didn't show up. We were supposed to work at 8, showed up at like 11:30, comes through. And I'm like, I'm pissed. 3.5 hours working by myself, didn't get all this stuff done. And I asked him, and he's like, oh, my grandma's in the hospital. I've been on the phone with family for 4 hours. Now, and just like you said, now I was being a dick there, making that assumption, and you have to make
yes.
sure you check those assumptions.
Check yourself 100%, man. And you know what? Like, actually, something else to get back to leadership and like learning and stuff like that, and what this journey has done for me. I said it recently. I have an assistant that helps out now, and I love her. She's amazing. She's very helpful. And I know that I can hit her up at any time. Like, yo, I need this done, this done, this done. Can you help me out? She's like, yep, what do you need? We'll jump on a call. I'll tell her what I need. I'll tell her what it needs to get done or whatever. And then she just goes and does it. And I feel like I wouldn't be so grateful for her. And even for Dan, again, going back to that, like, I know he struggles and it was my bad for being a bit of in my own head, being a dick, and I'm being open about it, of course. So don't
Mhm.
judge me too hard. I'm just kidding. I don't give a shit. Like we're all human. But seriously, I would not be so grateful for her if I saw my
Mhm.
success that I'm beginning to see now. I know it's not like over crazy success that people would measure, but I think I'm very successful right now in the sense of like the things that I've been able to do
Mhm.
and people I've been able to impact. And I wouldn't be so grateful for her if I started seeing that early on when I was younger. Because when I was younger, I wasn't as mature. I would have been probably more selfish. I probably would have been like more like, oh, I'm the best thing ever. Instead of being like, hey, man, you got punched in the fucking mouth and you got humbled hardcore. And like,
Mhm.
you kept going. And that's the thing that makes you special. That's it. That's the only thing that makes me special is I know I can. That's why I said earlier, I was built for this shit. Like all the weight on my shoulders, I can feel it in my neck physically, all of it. I was built for this shit, bro. I have shoulders, I have bricks, right? Like that's it.
Mhm.
That's the only thing I got that's good. And I think that is probably my greatest lesson in leadership right now, honestly, that I've learned is like the one of being genuinely humbled by life and by people. So
Makes me think, we've said it before the show. Everyone needs to get punched in the face. Everyone needs to get humbled a little bit like that.
fucking love that. That's why I
Well,
love
shifting over.
fighting.
Oh, I bet. I got the same type of thing out of rugby. I'm sure it's a similar type experience.
Very.
Just
Yeah.
something about getting your face ground into the mud.
Yes.
Well, shifted into what we learned. For me, and I wrote this down in about 5 or 6 different ways. So just to put it broadly, just communicate better, shut the fuck up and listen, and to have that empathy for people.
Yeah.
Even if you can't, you think you can't imagine it, take the time because you can. And, you
Yeah.
won't truly know what somebody went through, but it's worth taking the time to build up that empathy for them. How about you, James?
Oh,
What'd you learn?
100%. That is all of that. And I didn't take down any notes. So I just learned that I really did get humbled hardcore, me personally. I also want to put out there something that's very important to understand.
Mhm.
You don't have the life that you have right now without the people that are literally the ones carrying the guns, right?
Mhm.
You don't have the life that you have without that, because you want your business to be successful. Then you don't want the mob to be the one that is controlling you and saying your store is going to be safe, your store is going to be good, just pay us every month. If it doesn't,
Mhm.
well, we'll take care of that in the way that we take care of that. You don't want that shit anymore, do you? Nobody does. And that's what happens when you begin to destroy literally military and law enforcement and probably some of the most important jobs you could have in America or in the world right now. We live in such a modern society, people forget about that shit. They're like, oh, well, it's just peace and love, man. Well, no, it's not, dude. No, it's not. You got to be
Mhm.
you got to get out there, learn how to be a little bit dangerous for yourself so you can protect yourself. And you know what else? You got to fucking protect the people protecting you.
Mhm.
So when I tell you, my motivation is like through the roof to do this thing. It is through the roof, man. Like there's nothing stopping me. This is definitely my calling. I'm stepping into it bigger. So that's what I want to stress to people is like, just respect them, dude. Like respect those people, like do your
Mhm.
best, like learn about them, go sit down, go talk to a cop, genuinely talk to a cop and really ask them what's up.
Yeah.
And, sometimes they're going to be super silent. They're not going to say much, dude, because they don't think you fucking care. So you might have to do it again
Yeah.
and again and again, because, at the end of the day, they've seen enough people to know people. So that's
Mhm.
all.
Yeah, that's really great. Thanks for that. What's next for Project Refit, and how can people
Yeah.
help out? Donate, come see events, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Let's get a little lighter now that I just drove that home. Right. So
Finish on a high
guys,
note.
listen, yeah, end on a high note, even though that is a high note, go talk to people. That's
Yeah.
it. But genuinely go to projectrefit.us. Again, that's projectrefit.us. And then you can donate to us there. That's very helpful. If you want to get a mobile base in your town or in your city, please let me know. We can set up a way for you to fundraise and to raise enough money, because the way it works is you raise money for a mobile base. Let's say it costs, anywhere from 40 to 80,000. Let's stick with the 40,000 for math. If you raise $50,000 to get a mobile base in your town, in your city, in your county, and it costs 40,000, that extra $10,000 will be rolled over to the next base and then shipped out to the next base, right?
Oh
So
wow.
it's actually a pay it forward kind of method, to be able to pay for all of these bases to speed up the production of it. So please, if you want to get one in your town, your neighborhood, let us know. We can tell you who to contact for partnerships to make that work. How many volunteers you're going to need. It's probably going to be about 15 volunteers you're going to need overall to operate one of these things. And maybe one paid salaried employee, but that's completely up to you. You don't have to do that. I just like to do that because I want to do that, because I want to hire retired law enforcement and retired or just veterans in general,
Mhm.
and give them a great job that they can step into, that they'll love, with big purpose. So if you're a hospital and you want to get one in your town and community and have it just as your base, and let me know. Like, let's do it. Like, let's work a Project Refit to get these things out. So contact me at J, literally the letter of my first name, James. It's J at projectrefit.us. Just one syllable, not JAY, just J at projectrefit.us. And then you can follow us on social media everywhere, Project Refit, at Project Refit. So
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time today, James.
thanks, man. I appreciate it. Talk to you, Kenan.
All right. Thank y'all for listening to today's show. Special thanks to our guest, James Corbett, for joining us today, and our sponsor, Tribe and Purpose. Find your tribe, find your purpose. You can check out recent episodes of The Cam and Otis Show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, and check out a full archive at thecamandotisshow.buzzsprout.com. The Cam and Otis Show is on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks again. We'll see y'all next week.